The Kingdom of Sine was a pre-colonial Sira kingdom along the north bank of the Saloum River Delta in modern Senegal. The inhabitants are called Sine or Sine. History. Medieval to 19th century. According to the historian David Galvin, the oral historical record, written accounts by early Arab and European explorers, and physical anthropological evidence suggest that the various Sira peoples migrated south from the Fouta-Touro region beginning around the 11th century, when Islam first came across the Sahara. Over generations these people, possibly Pulaar-speaking herders originally, migrated through Wolof areas and entered the Sine and Saloum River valleys. This lengthy period of Wolof-Sira contact has left us unsure of the origins of shared terminology, institutions, political structures, and practices. Professor Etienne Vander-Wally gave a slightly later date, writing that the formation of the Serer ethnicity goes back to the 13th century, when a group came from the Senegal River Valley in the north fleeing Islam, and near Niaka met another group of Mandinka origin, called the Jelwa, who were coming from the southeast. The actual Serer ethnic group is a mixture of the two groups, and this may explain their complex bilinear kinship system. The actual foundation of the Kingdom of Sine is unclear, but in the late 14th century Mandinka migrants entered the area. They were led by a matrilineal clan known as the Jelwa. Here they encountered the Sira, who had already established a system of laymannic authorities, and established a Jelwa-led state with its capital in or near a Sira laymannic estate centered at Mbissel. Father Henry Gravrand reports in oral tradition that 1 Maada Sinig Mesa Wali Jak Saint Manor. Charles Becker notes that Gravrand had not recognized that this is actually a description of the 1867 Battle of Kanzalar, although he agrees that the migration of the Gwelo War can probably be explained by a war or a conflict of succession. Sira oral history says that after Mesa Wali assimilated into Sira culture and served as legal advisor to the layman council of electors, he was chosen by the Lamanzan people to rule. Almost a decade later he elected the legendary Diadian Ndire and founder of the Jolof Empire to rule the Kingdom of Jolof. He was the first Senegambian king to voluntarily give his allegiance to Diadian Ndire and asked others to do so, thereby making Sine a vassal of the Jolof Empire. It is for this reason that scholars propose the Jolof Empire was not an empire founded by conquest but by voluntary confederacy of various states. Around early 1550, both Sine and its sister Sira kingdom overthrew the Jolof and became independent kingdoms. Sira oral tradition says that the Kingdom of Sine never paid tribute to Diadian Ndire nor any of his descendants, and that the Jolof Empire never subjugated the Kingdom of Sine, and Diadian Ndire himself received his name from the mouth of Mesa Wali. The historian Sylvian Diouf states that each vassal kingdom, Walo, Takrur, Kaol, Baol, Sine, Salam, Wuli, and Niani, recognized the hegemony of Jolof and paid tribute. The rulers of Sine as well as Jolof continued to follow the traditional African religion. On the 18th of July 1867, the Muslim cleric Mabadiya Kelbar was killed at the Battle of Fandana-Thiathiaoun by the king of Sine Maada Sinig Kumba and Dofina Famak Diouf while he was trying to take control of Sine and make it a Muslim land. The rulers of Sine retained their titles throughout the colonial period and did not lose all official recognition until 1969 after the death of Maad Sinig Maheko Diouf. Portuguese explorers in the 15th century referred to Sine as the Kingdom of Baba Sim, a corruption of Bur Sine, and its people as Baba Sins. Old European maps frequently denote the Saloum River as the River of Baba Sins, Barbakins. It has now been acknowledged that the terms Sirios and Barbacini were actually a corruption by Alvise Cadamosto, the 15th century navigator. Alvise mistakenly distinguished between the Seri and the Barbacini, which seems to indicate that he was referring to two different people when in fact, the kingdom of Sine was a Sire kingdom where the king of Sine took residence. Since he had never set foot in Sire country, his accounts about the Sire people were mainly based on what his Wolof interpreters were telling him. Barbuchini is a corruption of the Wolof phrase Borbar Sine, meaning king of Sine, a phrase the Saras would not use. Economy. The economic base of Sine was agriculture and fishing. Millets and other crops were grown. Sine was very reluctant to grow groundnut for the French market, in spite of French colonial directives. It was less dependent on groundnut than other states. Deeply rooted in Sire conservatism and Sire religion, for several decades during the 19th century, the Sire farmers refused to grow it, or when they did, they ensured that their farming cycle was not only limited to groundnut production. Their religious philosophy of preserving the ecosystem affected groundnut production in Sine. Even after mass production was later adopted, succession struggles in the late 19th century between the royal houses hampered production. However, the kingdom of Sine was less susceptible to hunger and indebtedness, a legacy which continued right up to the last king of Sine, Maada Sinigma Hekorduf. It was very common for people from other states to migrate to the Sire kingdoms of Sine and Saloum in search of a better life. The inhabitants of Sine rarely migrated. Social organization. Some of the king's government include the Lamanes, the heir apparent such as the Buumi, Thilis and Lul, the Great Farber Kaba, the Farber Binder and the Great Jarif. Political structure of Sine. The following diagram gives a condensed version of the political structure of Sine.